And now, without any further delay, I would like to turn today's presentation, The Fatal Flaws with DMPs, over to your first presenter, Julie Fleischer, Vice President of Marketing Solutions for Neustar. Julie, you have the floor.
Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today. We are happy to be here on a Monday to talk about the fatal flaw in DMPs. It's a critically important subject, particularly as more brands are using DMPs to leverage their data and manage their customer graph. DMPs offer the illusion of control across channels, screens, and touch points. But do you know if you're really marketing to people, or are you just marketing to cookies and devices and profiles? Today, we are honored to be joined by Susan Bidel, Senior Analyst from Forrester, and John Baronello, Director of Marketing Analytics at Allstate. And I'm Julie Fleischer, Vice President of Marketing Solutions at Neustar. So let's begin with Susan and a review of the landscape as it sits today, and a view into what's changed and what challenges this has created for brands and agencies. Susan, take it away.
Thanks so much, Julie, and thanks for having me. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, largely because I just finished publishing the latest Forrester DMP wave. It's an update of one that we published in 2015, and it really covers the capabilities of DMPs in a pretty confused environment, as Julie alluded to. So let's take a look at that environment. This is the Luma landscape. We're all familiar with the Luma landscape. It basically captures all of the various vendors that intermediate the relationship between the marketer and the consumer. There are literally hundreds of logos on this landscape, and there's a landscape for display, for video, for mobile, for native, for social, for search. Now, admittedly, a lot of the logos on all of those are duplicative, as is their net effect, which is that each, for the marketer, and most of these logos represent companies whose capabilities are aimed at the marketer. So marketers have to really examine whether or not they offer any value. At the very least, what they do offer is distraction away from the core purpose of the marketer. And if they do offer value, is the value commensurate with what they cost, or the reduction to the working dollars that the marketer has to use against trying to find their best customers and message them? And then, of course, who are those customers? It's an ever-evolving group of people. Forrester estimates that there are 213 or so million online U.S. adults, and we break them out across generations, as you can see. The largest generation is Gen X. The most wired generation is Gen Y. Gen Z is pretty important, or will be in future years. Right now they're young, largely committed to mobile devices, and they don't, because of their youth, have a whole lot of money to spend. So they're, except for certain products, of less interest to a lot of marketers right now. All of these people use devices, many devices. The average U.S. online adult uses more than 4 connected devices. That number rises to 4.9 connected devices for Gen X. And what does that really mean for marketers? What it really means is it's harder and harder to identify who they're talking to and on what device, at what stage of the purchase funnel. And the reason for that is that media consumption and online activity is no longer limited to, as we've seen, just one device. And often the devices are used simultaneously. Who among us has not watched a big sporting event or a red carpet event on a connected TV, while perhaps looking at some e-commerce sites on your laptop or tablet, talking on your phone or texting on your phone with friends, or posting to your preferred social networks. So this presents an enormous confusion for marketers, especially as all of these activities take place not just from the living room, as that last image might suggest, but from everywhere that humans can get a connection. So from the living room, from the library, from being in transit while at work. And you could imagine that if people are doing this on their mobile devices, they are almost by definition multitasking. So what does that mean in terms of how many messages a marketer has to deliver to actually penetrate the attention of consumers? So confusion abounds. Confusion about who the marketer is talking to, or the target audience, on what device, at what point in the purchase funnel, and how, without all of that information, how does the marketer deliver relevant information that will actually move the customer from one stage of the purchase process to another? And even the purchase process is now confused. Once upon a time, when marketers were completely in control and it was all push from the marketer to the consumer, there was a funnel. You could identify your largest group of prospects, understand where you were connecting with them as a marketer, and then move them through the funnel from awareness through to purchase. The funnel has now, however, blown up. Arguably, the funnel blew up with the advent of social networks, where you could be at any point in the purchase process and receive information and inspiration from your friends and from companies on your social network. So now Forrester has essentially replaced the purchase funnel with what we refer to as the customer life cycle, where you have portions of the marketing strategy that are aimed at reach, and others that are aimed at engagement, and others that are aimed at transforming a customer into an advocate, all of which is affected and blown up essentially with great frequency by consumers on all their devices at different points in time. So what's the binding connective tissue that marketers need and rely on for to try and weave their message through this extremely confusing environment? Well, it's data. It's first-party data. It's demographic data. It's psychographic data. It's third-party data. It's combined first-party data in second-party data programs. And all of that is enabled by data management platforms, which are but one of, on average, more than 12 different tools that marketers use in the process of trying to reach their target market and sell their products. And here we have Forrester's list of systems of insight. There are 22 systems of insight. Among those, we include data management platforms. They're sort of about a quarter of a way down the list, which is sorted alphabetically. And they're accompanied by 22 systems of engagement across the MarTech ad tech stack. So data is the connective tissue that aggregates all of the information from the systems of insight and delivers them to the systems of engagement.
So that brings us to the fatal flaws with DMPs. We've got all of these systems of insight. We've got all of these systems of engagement. We've got data flowing all over the place. And it's all captured together in these DMPs. And our problem is that DMPs were built to solve a cookie problem, not an identity problem. Marketers want to market to people, not cookies or devices or profiles. And DMPs are really good at marketing to data, but not great at marketing to individuals. And they don't understand that people live in a connected world, which is offline and on. So there's 4 important things that make the traditional DMP a flawed platform. First, consumer data is constantly changing. Every year, around 55 million consumers change phone carriers, 45 million change phone numbers, 50 million move, more than 2 million change their name. The average cookie is deleted every 30 days. The average consumer, as Susan just said, has more than 4 connected devices and more than 2 and sometimes up to 10 email addresses. And our research shows that 60% of the customer information in a typical CRM database is wrong after only 2 years. Every time there's a change in your customer's profile, the identity chain breaks. And that means all the data you're using for targeting and measurement immediately becomes crap. Another thing is the Internet Explorer lost the browser market share to Chrome and Firefox and Safari, leading to multiple browsers on the same computer, essentially ending the cookie reliability and increasing identity fragmentation. And mobile phones and tablets became great options for content consumption, but that's a party to which cookies weren't invited. And then you have the vaunted cross-device graph. It was invented, leading marketers to believe that they were able to connect devices and email addresses universally, when in reality, it offers limited links between device and an email identifier. It is a step forward for sure, but it's a limited one with significant blind spots. So how many DMPs and so-called people-based marketers claim to be able to target over 1 billion people? And I know you've heard that before. We have over 1 billion people. Well, guess what? As Susan pointed out, there are 213.3 million adults in the United States and 120 million households. So those DMPs and people-based solutions traffic in tonnage, but not identity. Profiles are great at giving the impression of reach, but they lack the precision that marketers need to target accurately, manage global frequency, and provide the measurement precision required for attribution. Digital offers the promise of unifying and optimizing the consumer journey, extracting granular insight and intelligence from digital breadcrumbs, and delivering personalized messaging and dynamic creative sequenced across digital channels. But you know what? Today's omnichannel consumers are just that. There's omnichannel. They live not just digitally, but in the real world. So we need to have a durable understanding of identity to make everything work. And given that real people live in both the physical and the digital world simultaneously, and they expect brands to do the same thing, beyond connecting profiles, we need to connect these 2 worlds to form an accurate picture of that consumer. Traditional and digital marketing haven't yet acknowledged each other. Linear and terrestrial radio are still blind to digital marketing and vice versa. Unable to successfully and accurately connect marketing efforts online and offline back to actual people means organizations have these massive blind spots. They don't know what drove a purchase. They don't know what a given consumer has been exposed to. They can't connect the dots between offline and online experiences and exposures. And most problematically, they risk pissing off an existing consumer with that disconnect. How many of us have been irritated by an ad offering a discount to sign up for a service that we already use at a price lower than we're already being charged, or that ad for the pair of shoes that we've already bought, or any sort of excessive ad frequency across different sites, channels, and devices? Today's DMP still treats the world as a disconnected set of channels and devices. Each channel has its own distribution, attribution, segmentation, and measurement. And for a single advertiser, that can mean wrangling up to 10 to 20 vendors just to reach one omnichannel consumer. Without a single source of truth, a centralized hub for all marketing activity, brands can expect to not only have a distorted view of the customer or campaign performance. It's the reason why every publisher claims to have a really high positive ROI for a campaign that may have barely broken even, because each is attributing all of its success to its partial profile, blind to duplication. The reality is a really simple one. We need to operate at a level of identity, not just data. People, not profiles. Identity is the sum total of a person's entire experience and footprint, online and off, across everything. You are more than your digital footprint, more than your devices, and more than your email address. You live in the real world, and your DMP needs to live there too. The only way to understand people is through the lens of identity. So what does that mean? Identity is enduring. It lives beyond the 30-day shelf life of cookies. Identity is complete. It weaves together online and offline, multiple emails, profiles, and devices. Identity is singular. There's only one identity for each person in the world. And identity is ever-changing. It is never static, because every experience, purchase, view, click, visit, and conversion adds a new layer of interest and intent. And identity is a competitive advantage, because if you truly know your customer at the identity level, you can develop deep insights, segment and target with intelligence, activate with precision, measure with confidence, and create a learning loop that fuels your business results. DMPs don't have the critical assets to be able to manage identity. There are 5 identifiers that need to be resolved in order to get to true identity. You need personal identifiers, first name, last name, email addresses, plural, mobile phone number, social media IDs. These will all be anonymized and stripped of PII for marketing purposes, but they are vital components to understanding and maintaining persistence of identity. Household data, like address, location, residential landline, location matters. Digital online web data, so cookies, pixel tags, IP addresses, other technology associated with computers, browsers, or devices. Mobile app data, like advertising identifiers for smartphones or tablets, typically associated with one device. And emerging touch points, like identifiers from interactive TV, the Internet of Things, wearables, etc. The convergence of all of these identifiers are necessary for a 360-degree persistent view of a consumer, which includes online and offline visibility and is resolved across all aspects of connected behaviors. But convergence is necessary, but not sufficient. To truly authenticate identity, these elements must be collected, correlated with each other, corroborated using authoritative identifiers, and connected with accuracy and precision. And finally, the identity system must be developed and managed with privacy by design. Privacy by design is the common sense notion that privacy and security must be taken into consideration throughout the entire life cycle of collecting and using consumer information, whether personally identifiable or not, by everyone who works with that information. It's not an after-the-fact concern. It's a process for interacting with data. So without this broad base of identifiers, collection, correlation, corroboration, connection, and privacy by design, People-based marketing gets stale really quickly. Different emails are used for different aspects of life and consumerism. So Facebook may be tied to one email address, e-commerce to another, LinkedIn to a third, and people-based solutions see these as three different people. They cannot resolve it to one identity. And as discussed, identity isn't static. Personal data changes and becomes obsolete super quickly. Being able to accurately identify a customer is one of the most basic foundational steps in your marketing process. Connecting the dots online and offline, as well as the touch points and interactions, helps ensure you're reaching the right person with the right message, and it's critical to successful marketing and business outcomes. Identity resolution also helps deliver connected experiences by recognizing people across the customer journey. This reduces marketing waste by eliminating duplicate consumer profiles and makes basic tasks like registering and using an online account login more efficient. The answer to the DMP problem is what we call an IDMP. It's based on identity. Now I'm going to turn it over to John to talk about how Allstate uses our IDMP as a way to unify all of their marketing activities to individuals to drive effectiveness, reduce waste, and grow their business. John, take it away.
Thanks, Julie. Hi, everyone. Yeah, this is a topic that is really has been really important for Allstate, and my work specifically at Allstate, over the last couple of years, to understanding the complication that we have to work with that's in front of us, and needing to put forward a effective marketing program, and simultaneously working through all the complications based off of everything that Susan and Julie just outlined. It's kind of a doom and gloom scenario, actually, the way it comes off. But there's a way through it, and we've been trying a lot of different things and working on different projects and methods to get for there to be clarity in this problem. And I want to speak to you guys today as a practitioner, someone who's in the weeds day to day, and needing to adapt day to day to our industry. So I'll just quickly sum it up as what we're trying to accomplish as marketers. The fundamentals are exactly the same. We're just trying to identify who we need to reach and how to reach them. Really, what's awesome about our industry is all the technology advances and data advances and techniques that have come online to help us do that more effectively in very unique ways. But really what that means is that the execution has changed. And within that change of execution is really where this problem of data and identity and keep making a sense of everything that's going on has really emerged. So I think we could do a whole session just on data and the importance of data. I know we talked about here in this webinar, and it's talked about constantly. We need every brand, every advertiser needs to really own what their data strategy is within the marketing space. But we need to also recognize that the tools that we're using to deliver on our goals and our vision is killing the data. Ad tech literally is butchering our user data, and we see it time and time again. So, I have a real simple task. I need to set up a program that basically achieves this. There are individuals that we've identified that we need to reach, and there's multiple channels to which we can reach them, and through multiple methods. And it really is a simple premise, back to those basic fundamentals. Find individuals and reach them. And as some earlier stats were thrown out from Susan, the living room is obviously typically one of the hot spots to reach individuals. But it's across multiple devices, across where they are, when they're shopping, when they're in market, when they're not in market, making all those pieces connect together. So, it's a simple premise to push forward. And, I get a kick out of this, living it day to day is, often, we'll put together the nice looking frameworks that will simply outline how we're going to achieve this. I'm sure many of those listening today have created a framework like this to explain to others about the organization of how we're going to solve this problem. Basically you need to have a data strategy that needs to tie into your who you're targeting and how you're targeting them. You need to be fine-tuning your execution, be mindful of your measurement framework, and then obviously be continuously learning through test and learn. It's real simple stuff. And it will, when you show this internally in the organization, I think it does a disservice because I think it makes it seem like what we're trying to accomplish is super easy. Because really, all you need to do is pick a partner or 2 or 25 that are needed to have you pull off that vision and put all those pieces in place to deliver on what you're trying to execute. Now, we talked about this earlier on, the Lumiscape, the display landscape. Really for MarTech, and if you're an advertiser or a brand or an agency, and you need to think about connecting touch points across multiple channels and across multiple devices, you're really going to need to have a play into multiple partners and different technologies to help you get there. And just like everyone else, we here at Allstate, we've been developing our approach and our technology to do this. And it's interesting is I've been trying to find solutions for this data and identity problem over the last couple of years. I realized that solving for the ecosystem that we're trying to develop is the way to find your answer. And by that I mean, simply kind of coming up with, really talking about what's really happening behind the scenes. So, stepping away from the nice charts to kind of show marketing stacks, how they all fit together, all very nice. I mean, really, I think that if you're not careful, you can have a situation of what I like to call ad tech stew. And let me explain to you. So we're going to build a simple stack, and I think this will resonate with mostly everyone. So let's say you've identified this individual who you want to reach. This happens to be a colleague of mine. I like to call him out on this all the time. It's fun to make him
Hi, John, part of this. John, this is Phil. I'm sorry to interrupt. Your audio is breaking up quite badly. Do you have the backup line in place?
Yes, I do. 1 second.
Thank you.
Great. Sorry about that, everybody. I'll back it up. I'll back it up one. Basically, to move forward and pulling off what we need to pull off to be sophisticated with our marketing execution, there's a lot we need to work with. So I'm going to just really shine a little light on this problem and talk through a concept I like to call ad tech stew. I mean, really, if you're not thinking through the solution as it relates to how you're going to solve the identity and data problem within the ecosystem that you put in place, it's going to take time for you to come up with that answer. So let's build a simple stack. Let's say we've identified someone that we want to reach, and we know we need to hit them on their specific devices. So what do you do? All right, so you start with an ad server. That's simple, okay? You put an ad server in place, and from that you add a DSP, and just to build up a little simple aspect. Maybe you have a couple site serve placements that you're interested in. Great, but remember, there's all different kinds of DSPs, all different types of options out there. So you'll go in, you'll add a couple more because you want to extend reach and do some little different items and targeting, which is great. And maybe in the process you think about some additional sites that you want to serve. Perfect. Now, each one of these has their own data element that they're going to bring to the table. So you got to be concerned with that. So what do? Well, maybe what you'll start is thinking through a data management platform, which is what we're talking about today. So perfect. So just put that in place, and that helps tie some things together. But, mobile is important. Mobile is its own beast and identity, and we know that we need to solve for it. So you got to think about how we're going to do that. And also, mobile brings its own form of data that's unique and problematic, and something that we need to have potentially a separate plan for. So we have that we have to consider. Obviously, we're going to want to tie in your analytics. And your analytics is going to bring your own data asset to the table, so you have that piece in there. And so you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, with all these pieces in place, how am I going to tie together everyone and get everyone and know that who we're reaching is the right person and everything. So there's a solve for that. There's a device graph, which is great. Device graphs are perfect to help us tie all that together, right? The problem is there's 3 different device graphs, 3+ device graphs that you're using at any one given time, and they may or may not overlap. They might give you a different answer to the equation, and they specifically bring all their own data to the table as well. So you have these pieces that are working hopefully for you, but they could be working against you too. So you may want to start down the path of doing some specific audience targeting through onboarding, which is your either customer list or your prospect list that you can onboard and through various partners and just target those households specifically, which sounds like a great solve. So you'll start doing this, and you'll have some success with it probably, and so you'll want to do a little bit more of it. So you have a few different campaigns that are running with your onboarded lists, and they'll have their own data that they'll bring to the table that you need to have a strategy for. So what are you going to do? Okay, well, I guess what you do is you just tie all these pieces together within your DMP, and we're set to go, right? Well, I mentioned before that if you're building out and trying new technologies and new platforms throughout the process, you might be in a situation where you maybe have more than one DMP in play, because each DMP kind of brings its little its own flavor to the table. So maybe there's 1 or 2 other ones that you're interested in. So what do you do? Well, I guess at that point you just recreate all the connections there. And maybe at this point we're kind of vetting the difference between the two in terms of their specific capabilities. So, okay, great. We have all that working for us. We should be fine. But DMPs are so 2016, and now there's people management platforms that we're talking about today. So it's not a data management platform. It's an ID management platform. So there's the one that you're using have this. Or, do you have the capabilities to do it? What are the benefits? So all this is trying to, you're trying to make sense of all this that's happening on the digital side. And, that's the kicker to this whole problem, because that's just digital. The reality, as we all know, as you're trying to piece all this together, is that, this omni-channel world that we're in makes all this a lot more complicated. Each one of these icons here technically is a ecosystem of data that I'm needing to connect to, either to push data out or targeting out through, or have a strategy to pull all that back in. At our business, we have a large online to offline dynamic, so large that it's 97% of our sales are occurring offline. So, I'm doing all these things with my online channels and piecing together identity graphs and all these pieces and things like that. And I'm really trying to understand what that impact is to the 97% of sales that are happening offline. So it's great. How are we going to handle all that? Well, we all know there's a solution. There's attribution. You just throw attribution on top of all this, and it's going to help you tie it all together, because, if you haven't thought through the underlying data, how problematic can this be, right? Well, all that's going great, until I get asked the real simple questions. Such as, hey, how is this one creative asset working? And I have no idea how to answer that question. You really can't. Think about the stew I just outlined. To answer that question, it starts with 100 new questions, such as, well, what creative is it? Where was it served? How was it served? What was the strategy behind it? Who did it reach? Who didn't it reach? What were the sales patterns of those individuals to which it reached? It goes on and on and on. And, these simple questions shouldn't be so hard to answer. And, the reason why it is difficult for us that are putting these programs and these pieces in place is that the data that we're working with, if we don't have a strategy around it, it's all over the place. We can't connect all the right pieces. We can't get to simple questions. And really, often if you can answer the simple questions in your organization the right way, you're going to get progress in moving outcomes forward much quicker than if you can't, obviously. And that's not to mention when you start to get at the real big questions such as cross-channel frequency management, attribution type of thing. So you need to have something well thought out, thinking about how all the different pieces fit together. So I call this finding the path. It's just a little bit of a way that kind of talk about what we've done here at Allstate and really the steps that we've taken one by one to try to build the right foundation for ourselves. And I really want to say it's a path. It's also a bit of a journey in the sense that since technology is constantly changing and data is constantly changing, and really, what we're being asked to do and deliver now is going to be, different 6 months from now because that's how fast everything is going. You really need to find your path. And I found that focusing on the data is the right way to piece this together. So, what I mean by this, and I have a real simplified drawing here, and it's kind of, really the theme of our discussion today is this, what I call unified identity data, is to have an infrastructure that you can use the principles of identity management as the linking architecture for all of your data assets to come together. So you can have the best ability as you can, a full picture of touch points. Now, we all talk about 360-degree view of the customer. I think I would be happy with a 270-degree view at times, just to make sure I get all the core pieces together. But really, there's a way forward here. So what we've done is that we've basically, by leveraging the Neustar's DMP and really accessing their identity management capabilities and backbone to their technology, is that we've created a data asset that connects multiple pieces of information together, and that's digital exposures, mobile app exposures, CRM data so we can capture online and offline events, something where we can be building out our ad tech signals into, have an idea across those different sales channels, and also be a place where, as we're developing our models and our intelligence, we can plug this in as well. And really, what you end up having is a unified data asset that says, this is who this person is. You know why that person's important for your business, and you have other models and data that tells you that. The power of connecting that to the marketing side of the equation, specifically as it relates to digital, really can open up a lot of opportunities as it has for us. So we'll do this, and our purpose for doing this is to have basically push out a more qualified one-to-one audience scenario. By that I mean there's if you can accurately blend together different types of data assets from across not only the MarTech ecosystem but also throughout your existing platforms, you really end up having a very unique view of consumers or who you want to reach. Also, having an environment like this is good for data integrations with other partners. Often, a way that I will vet a vendor's capabilities is that we'll do a data test, and we'll say, okay, if you really have differentiated data you can bring to the table, let's put this in an environment where we can make it anonymized from a PII perspective level, and really kind of look at where the value of a specific data asset can be brought to enhance what you already have. And then finally, MTA and modeling. I think the more that you need to rely on algorithms to connect the pieces in a butchered data world, the more difficult, the more fuzzy your answers you're going to get out of those systems. So, if your underlying data is solid and connects most of the main pieces together, you're gonna be in good shape. I wanted to build it in such a way where I could literally go to the raw data asset and find the answers to which I was looking for. I wanted to actually see individuals that were being exposed explicitly to mobile app inventory ads and follow them through the entire ecosystem in terms of online and offline conversions and actions. I wanted to be able to prove or disprove within the raw data itself that a certain strategy is working or is not working, and vice versa. I think if you can answer this question of your data, if your data can answer this question for you, it adds a lot of power to what you want to do, and actually ends up simplifying a lot of your processes. And it's interesting when you start doing it. I get into the situation here where I like to kill the KPIs, and this specifically the bad KPIs. Just released some work with the MMA. That was our case study. That was targeting formats and the depth of the click-through. We found basically found zero correlation from a click-through to a sales outcome, and I wasn't running correlation analytics on these data sets. It was literally looking at households and individuals that are clicking and following them through the whole ecosystem versus those that are not. It's really powerful stuff. Also, without this data and a methodology to get to this information, things are quickly emerging platforms like mobile. We're blind to it. What's going on? It was a night and day type of outcome where one day we were saying there's specific mobile strategies that just don't work, and then all of a sudden we had answers that they did work, and the only thing that changed was we were able to stitch data together in a very different way to put light to shed light on the situation. So it's an interesting situation to be in, to be driving the organization through to make very specific decisions as it relates to media strategy, marketing strategy, and whatnot, and learning as you go of how to answer it the best way, and building data and technology to do it with you. What ends up happening is you end up doing a lot of change management, a lot of truths, or a lot of what was always known to be truth. You'll be going back and saying, actually, this was not truthful. This is not the case. It really is. There really is new information to flow through. So it's exciting work when you can get the ball rolling, and it really has been something that we've put a lot of value in at Allstate. So I think, Julie, I'll kick that back over to you.
Yeah, thanks. You're a hard act to follow. I think that John did a great job of showing the real complexity of the landscape today, and the difference between marketing to data and taking advantage of all of these amazing data sets we have, but sort of losing that resolution of marketing to people. And that's the challenge, and what we're calling the fatal flaw with DMPs, because they give this illusion that we're under control and we're directing our marketing in a way that is consistent and well stewarded and measurable. But in the end, what we're doing is we're creating more and more complexity and more fracturing and more busted data, as John was saying. And so what Allstate has done, which I think is really exciting, is they've used this identity data management platform, this underlying layer of unified identity, to resolve all of their different platforms to each other and to people. And I think it's really critical when we think about this, that people-based marketing is one benefit of an identity data management platform, but it's not the only one. So by unifying this identity layer underpinning all of the DMPs and channels and partners, you get to centralized intelligence that enables better audience segmentation, syndication, and performance. And it enables you to do things like really actually manage global frequency and optimize spend. And it enables unified targeting and activation, both online and offline, and particularly important for a company like Allstate that has call centers, that has agent offices, that has direct mail. It also anonymizes and normalizes campaign reporting across all platforms and publishers. And then it also creates this data log at the individual level that can be used for accurate attribution across all of the touch points. And the key to all of it is this end-to-end system of identity. No marketer wants to advertise to devices or channels or profiles or data points. And the fatal flaw with DMPs is that they do exactly that. So we really believe that if you don't get identity right, everything else will be wrong. So that's what we wanted to share today. That's the fatal flaw of DMPs. And we've got some time to open it up for questions. So let's do that. Thank you.
Yeah, so we have a question from the audience. Why is authoritative identity better than deterministic?
Deterministic identity is, well, actually, Susan, why don't I let you start with that, and then I'll weigh in. Susan? All right, I'll weigh in. Deterministic identity is great. It's first party. It's got actual identifiers that help us know who the person is. The challenge with deterministic identity is, again, it can be partial, and it can be, it gets old over time. So again, remember we said identity is not static, it's dynamic, it's ever-changing over time. So a great example of deterministic identity is when I signed up for my hotel my hotel loyalty program. I did so with deterministic identity. I did so with an email address, an address, and a phone number, all of which were deterministic to me, all of which have changed since then. So it was right at a point in time, but it's dated, and now it's obsolete. Authoritative identity is identity that is correlated and corroborated and is corrected. So it's right today, and it might go back in time to correlate with my past address and email, so I can bring all of that data forward. But it's enduring, it's fixed, and it's corrected. Susan, I had just thrown it to you. Is there anything that you want to add about deterministic versus authoritative identity?
So my apologies for that little glitch. I missed the beginning of your answer, but I would say from Forrester's point of view that deterministic is the beginning piece of authoritative, but I think as you suggested, deterministic can shift as people move, as they switch devices, as they have a variety of different emails. And so constantly correcting and updating is the right path.
Our next question is for John. What types of insights have you accessed from this identity intelligence?
Yeah, there's been many. One specifically is one of the big ones as we were first rolling this out was what I mentioned before, our ability to see the value of mobile advertising. It was we were unable to identify, basically through data loss, third-party ad tags being placed in mobile app inventory was not sufficient to be able to attach a mobile impression back to an individual for us to understand if someone was being, if an individual was being reached with specific mobile inventory, and then therefore converting. It wasn't until we put this identity layer and this data in place that we're able to actually see, oh no, there's individuals that are being exposed. Now to do that, you have to you have a strategy with every single every vendor that you're working with to be able to integrate data at a unique level back into your identity graph. But when you do it, you can see the value. Now, what that does is that drives changes in our marketing strategy, and we identified how far we feel we could take mobile. That's one example. Another example is, I feel much more confident now that before I integrate with a vendor that's promising to have a very specific data capability, I don't have to implement them and run a campaign and wait 3 months and then analyze to see what happened and then to determine if something worked or not. I can do a data analysis with them up front right now through basically data integration analysis. And I can determine if what they can bring to the table is actually going to be incrementally better or different from what I already have. So the value to be able to make that call ahead of time before investing in a test is very powerful.
Okay. Next question is for Susan. Where do you see the future of online and offline data going?
Well, I think hopefully the future of online and offline data is that it will be the identity of the person online and offline will be stitched together so that the marketer can have a clear understanding of who it is they're talking to, at what point in the communication process they are, offline or online, so that they can sequence messaging and deliver, move a prospect through the purchase process. But I think we're a fair bit away as television remains linear, and as, quite frankly, television executives fight the process of digitization as hard as they possibly can.
Great. Julie, anything you have to add to that?
I would just say my hope is that the future of offline and online is a shared future. So my hope is as the world gets more connected, we bring online and offline together. So that is more connected as well. One identity, regardless of whether we're talking about the real world, physical world, the online world, it's all one.
Okay, great. We have lots more questions, but we are at the top of the hour, and so we will get back to you individually with all of your questions. Thank you so much for your participation. Phil, I'm going to hand it over to you. Susan, John, and Julie, thank you so much for being here today.
All right, thank you, Kelly. And ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude today's webinar. We do thank you for joining us. We thank you for your participation and your questions. You may now all disconnect and have a great day.